The disappearing village. Detective Sarah Lawson had seen her share of peculiar cases, but none quite like the mystery of Eldritch Hollow. Nestled deep in the English countryside, the village was picturesque with cobblestone streets, charming cottages, and vibrant gardens. Yet Eldritch Hollow held a dark secret. Every year, on the same date, a resident would vanish without a trace. Sarah arrived in Eldritch Hollow on a crisp autumn morning, the air filled with the scent of damp leaves and the distant echo of church bells. She had been called in by the local constable, George Millstone, a man with a weary look in his eyes and a firm handshake. "Welcome to Eldritch Hollow, Detective," George greeted her. "I wish it were under better circumstances." Sarah nodded, glancing around the village square. "I understand the latest disappearance happened just last week." George led her to the home of latest victim, Margaret Willows, a widow schoolteacher beloved by the community. The house was neat and orderly with nothing out of place. There were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry. It was as if Margaret had simply walked out and never returned. Margaret was the fifth person to vanish in as many years, George explained, his voice tinged with frustration. No clues, no patterns, just gone. Sarah examined the house, paying close attention to Margaret's personal effects. A half-finished knitting project lay on the armchair, a cup of cold tea on the table. Everything suggested Margaret had been in the middle of a quiet evening at home. "Do all the disappearances happen on the same date?" Sarah asked. George nodded. "October 31st. We have tried to find a connection between the victims, but they were all different ages, professions, and had no known enemies." As Sarah continued her investigation, she spoke with the villagers, sensing a mix of fear and resignation. They were tight-lipped, offering little beyond the usual platitudes. It was as if they had accepted the annual disappearance as inevitable curse. In the village archives, Sarah found records dating back centuries. Eldritch Hollow had a long history, but the disappearance only started 5 years ago. There was no mention of anything unusual before that. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah decided to stay in the village overnight. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Sarah's instincts told her to visit the old church. It stood at the edge of the village, its weathered stone walls and ancient graveyard shrouded in mystery. Inside, she found Riven James, an elderly man with kind eyes. He was surprised to see her, but welcomed her warmly. "Detective Lawson, what brings you to our humble church at this hour?" he asked. "I am searching for answers, Riven," Sarah replied. "Do you know anything about the disappearance?" The Riven sighed, his gaze distant. "Eldritch Hollow is a place of old traditions and deeper secrets, Detective. Some believe the disappearances are the work of restless spirits. Do you believe that?" Sarah pressed. Riven James hesitated. "I believe there is a darkness in this village, something beyond our understanding. It's as if the village itself has a will and it demands a sacrifice." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "A sacrifice? Every year on All Hallows Eve, a life is taken," the Riven continued. "But why it started 5 years ago, I cannot say." Sarah spent the night in the church, her mind racing with possibilities. As midnight approached, a thick fog rolled into the village, obscuring everything. Sarah felt an eerie stillness, as if time itself had paused. Then she heard it, a soft whispering, almost imperceptible. She followed the sound to the graveyard, where a figure stood among the tombstones. It was Margaret Willows, her eyes vacant, her expression blank. "Margaret!" Sarah called out, but the woman did not respond. Suddenly, the ground beneath Margaret began to glow with an ethereal light. Sarah watched in horror as the woman slowly sunk into the earth, the ground swallowing her whole. Sarah rushed forward, but it was too late. Margaret was gone, leaving only an undisturbed patch of grass behind. Sarah fell to her knees, her mind struggling to comprehend what she had witnessed. The village secret was darker than she had ever imagined. Eldritch Hollow was alive, and it demanded a yearly sacrifice. The next morning, Sarah shared her findings with George, who listened in stunned silence. Together, they vowed to find a way to break the village's curse. But deep down, Sarah knew that some mysteries were meant to remain unsolved, and Eldritch Hollow would continue to claim its due. And so the village remained, its beauty masking a terrible secret, as the wheel of time turned once more towards the next October 31st.